Grab your spears and raise your tomahawks, Seminole fans. You're listening to The Warpath, the weekly collaboration between the Osceola.com and Warchant.com. My name is Nick Carlisle, staff writer for the Osceola. That is Matt Lassay, recruiting writer for Warchant. Welcome to the show on an early Thursday morning. You know this show is pre-recorded. Normally we like to go in the afternoons, but circumstances dictate that we shoot bright and early like a bunch of old men this morning. We got the coffee, started our days. And before we start anything, Matt Lassay, are you a morning shower guy or are you an evening shower guy?
I'm both.
You're both?
I'm both. I first thing when I wake up, because it wakes you up, makes you feel good for the day, and then right before bed so you feel clean and wash the day away, right? Like my water bill's pretty high.
Long showers. Well, I say that to say, well, I'm a morning shower guy. And I just got done showering, I don't know, maybe 40, 45 minutes ago. And I said, hey, I kind of need to shave a little bit. You know, the underside of the neck's getting a little unkept there. When you need to go and shave in the morning, why not think of Dollar Shave Club? When you rep your team, whether it's in the morning before the games or at night before you go to bed, you don't stop at the jersey. Dollar Shave Club's collegiate razor handles combine grooming with glory, letting students, grads, and fans show their school spirit, no matter what time of day it is, in style. From the sink to the stadium, shave with school pride. Visit dollarshaveclub.com to grab your college handle today and go Seminoles. Did want to thank Dollar Shave Club for being a sponsor of the Warpath bright and early here on this edition of the show. Okay, Matt, so we are coming off likely the biggest recruiting weekend for Florida State this entire season. Obviously, Alabama was huge. You had immediate implications and momentum on the recruiting trail from that game. We all knew what Miami was going to be. We all knew the amount of prospects that they were bringing in on Saturday, the caliber of prospects they were bringing in on Saturday. Absolutely not the result that the team wanted on the field, but in terms of recruiting, a lot of good things set in place, not only for the 2026 class, but 2027 class. I know that people are going to freak out, Matt, and say, oh, we look terrible. Recruits are going to decommit immediately. That's not how it works, at least not usually. There are some outliers from Javion Nilsson. But you do put a lot of good things in stone for potential visits down the road for a 2026 class, and you get a chance to impress and show your improvement from last year for a lot of those 2027 kids.
Yeah, it's never – fans always love to be the sky is falling, especially when you lose to a Miami or a UF. But, in general, it flips. It's so easy for these coaches. You just flip the pitch. Like if we had you could have made a difference. You would have made a difference in this game either way, especially when it ends up only being a 6-point loss or covering the spread. So it doesn't look as bad as it did going into the fourth quarter, 28-3. But it's – I think that comeback actually did show a lot to some recruits. A lot of recruits commented on it after the game. Like it just last year, this team would have quit. I think we all know that the team would have rolled over and it probably would have been a 40-point loss. But it was good to see that this team kept going no matter the situation and was able to kind of get back on track there. And maybe that's momentum going into the Pitt game. I know we're a recruiting show and shouldn't talk much about the results on the field, but it's I think that played a big factor. Like even talking to, and we'll get into it with specifically for each guy, but like even talking to Ernest Rankins, he said that was like a big statement for him. But it's in general, again, the pitch flips to we could have used you. You'll hear a lot. The pitch was also they played a lot of freshmen on the D line. That was a big pitch over the weekend. Wins and losses do matter to some recruitments, but I would say for the majority of them, it only matters if you're 13-0 or very bad, right? Like when you were 2-10, the results mattered because you were so bad. And when you're 13-0, the results matter because you're so good. When you're in between, everyone's the same.
It's important to remember that not every single recruit that you're going to be bringing in goes to a high school that's like 3 times straight national champion or state champion. Who is used to nothing but winning. There are a number of guys that you bring in that go to high schools that are not having great seasons. Football players understand the ebbs and the flows of the game, and everything that can be packed into a win or a loss. And I do think that that fourth quarter, as much as you may want to downplay it and say, Miami had backups in, they're playing zone coverage, allowing Tommy to do whatever he wanted. The game was already in hand, yada, yada, yada. It does show that I think in the grand scheme of the game, it was like, okay, Florida State just played bad football for three and a half quarters. They played much better in the fourth quarter. It's not like it was a straight wash of a showing for the entirety of the game, even though there is a good portion of that game that
Miami is also a very good team.
Like that is going to be a top 10 defense for
Yes.
sure by the end of the season. We'll see if Cristobal can keep it going without the inevitable wheels falling off.
He got close to blowing this one.
We're throwing the ball on 4th and 8 and giving Florida State a chance to get back in the game. It's
kick the field goal. If you kick the field goal, the game's out of reach, and you probably cover. Okay.
I was gonna. He's obsessed with like machoing everybody. It's like, okay, now I've beaten you. Now I've got to run the score up on you, and it makes him look like an ass. It does. So it's a little bit of housekeeping. We did talk about new Florida State tight end commit Corbin Foreman last week. I don't know that we were expecting a Friday commitment. Were you expecting a Friday commitment? I figured it was going to happen later in the weekend.
No, we were actually most of our staff was at a corner pocket at the time when it dropped, and we kind of we heard some stories from boosters there that was like, who were in the locker room earlier that day and heard a big cheer from the coaches or something, and they heard that there was a big flip coming. So that's kind of how it went down on the inside. But literally, I was talking with Ira and Bill, owner of Corner Pocket, and I had to kind of like slip my phone to Ira to show him the picture that the kid committed, and we were all like, of course. But anyway, it's still good to see him commit. That we called it, right? It was only about 2 hours after the show dropped, so that makes us look good. And it's a big pickup for Florida State. I think that tug at the heartstrings. It's good for him to be back home and close to home. You could see how just whenever Corbin visited while he was committed to Ohio State, which was like that junior day a few months ago, and it always seemed like he was walking on eggshells, right? That was kind of like the vibe you always got. I
agree.
Body language, and
he didn't want to talk to you. He kind of didn't want to say anything to screw anything up.
No, and it feels like that monkey is off his back. Like literally just the way he walks and the way he's talking to other recruits and stuff, like just seeing him is like it felt like the body language was completely different and he felt more comfortable. So that's good to see. And he's obviously recruiting. I think he said Hezzy Kent was the guy they want. And he's also already good friends with Xavier Tiller. So they were attached to the hip ball visit as well. And he even went to hang out with him after the game. So it's, again, this is one we saw coming. I thought it was going to be Saturday night, but it was good to see it kind of drop a little early Friday. And, this tight end room's got some fire to it, and they haven't shown that they're done yet either.
No, it's a great pickup for Florida State. I really like Corbin as a prospect, as we talked a little bit about last week. Not going to rehash too much about it, but
he's not a 3-star. He's a 4-star.
No, I know he's a 4-star.
He's a 4-star.
He's a 4-star, and look, he's exactly what they're looking for in the tight end room right now. And
100%.
He's got a bigger body. He's long. He's not afraid to block. Definitely more on the pass catching side of things. But if you're trying to set a bar or a benchmark, he's not quite Chase Lofton, where it's clear that that's just a very, very tall wide receiver that you're going to put on weight later. This guy is a tight end. True and true. All right, Matt. Obviously a huge recruiting weekend. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to start here?
I was kind of hoping. I saw you wrote a good column for the Osceola this weekend about how this game was kind of the Miami game. I know, again, recruiting podcast, we don't talk about the results on the field a whole lot, but how recruiting in the past affected the result of this game.
Yeah, so I think when you're watching the product on the field on Saturday, you notice that there's a talent gap. And it's a talent gap in the sense of Miami was just as fast as Florida State. They did extremely well in the trenches. I mean, that defensive line is freakish. But there are moments on Saturday when you could pick apart and say, those are some dudes. You get a Malachi Toney who reclassified from the 2026 class into the 2025 class. You get him on campus early. That's a game breaker. And you take a look at the classes of the past. And one of the more common critiques, and this I think everybody is going to understand, is that Florida State has delved too far into the portal. And why is that? It's because the 2021 and the 2022 classes were such horrific misses on all levels that you almost had to. And essentially, there is a snowball effect, and Florida State has avalanched for so long on the high school recruiting trail in terms of not being able to recruit the elite guys, but also not being able to hit on the evaluations. And that's the scary part is, okay, if you're not going to be able to hit on the guys that are the elite of the elite, you need to hit on your evals of the guys that are a second below or a step below. So in going back through and looking through the numbers, through the first 3 classes that Mike Norvell had signed, so 2020, 2021, and 2022, obviously 2020 was a transition class. Only 6% of those players are still on roster. Now, that's a little bit misleading. You do have guys that have already moved on. You have guys like A.Z. Thomas, Josh Farmer, Kevin Noles. Those guys made it to the NFL. Some of them, you scratch your head and said, how is that person on an NFL roster? I feel no disrespect to Kevin Knowles. He was a good part of this team for many, many years, but he's elevated from the practice squad. Now he's playing in an NFL game. And well,
he was a
Kevin
backup for most of his career here, like a 6-man type.
Yeah. So when you count the numbers of guys that also either graduated, made it to the NFL, that number grows a little bit more because you have guys like Ja'Kai Douglas, who was a part of the 2020 class. That's probably your best player from that 2020 class, right? He's Ja'Kai Douglas. You have guys like Kentron Portier, DJ Lundy. But even those guys, right? Even those guys, you kind of question how much they were able to help your program because they were transfer portaled over for years and years and years. And obviously Kentron struggled with injuries. DJ Lundy was just up and down as a football player.
Hey, his best game ever was that Boston College game. I'll never forget that one. But
so when you start taking a look at all of the guys that Norvell had signed. Oh, and by the way, those 4 players that are on the team from those first 3 classes, Daniel Lyons, Omar Graham, Shaheem Brown, and then Marquiston Douglas. And even Marquiston Douglas bounced between here in Ohio and not Ohio State, Arizona State. But you got guys like LT, Josh Farmer, Zaire Thomas, Kevin Knowles. If you include all of those, 14%. 14% is 8 out of 58 signees for your first 3 classes. That's not a good hit rate. That's not a good hit rate in terms of guys that were not only being able to be quality, productive guys for you, but make it to that next level. Because there's multiple ways to judge, right? How successful. Sometimes you just have a good college football player. But even in those guys, how many guys are you going to be able to say that's a good college football player? There's not it's a very huge gray area, right? So then that number jumps to 29% when you get to the 2023 class, where 23 out of the 78 signees in those first, I think that's adding the 4th class, is still with the program, is still contributing, or has made it to the professional leagues. So now we're getting into a conversation where this is where we can tie it back into what we saw on Saturday, right? The 2023 class is who we saw on the field on Saturday night. You want to take a look and compare Florida State's 2023 class to Miami's 2023 class. There are definitely some guys that could be dudes on Florida State's roster. Jabril Rawls, Ashlyn Barker, Edwin Joseph, maybe down the road. He's a little inconsistent. Then you have your offensive line guys like Lucas Simmons, Andre Otto. Your top guys from that class, Matt, from Florida State side, have already left the program. Hakeem Williams is gone. Conrad Hussey decided to throw hands. And then you look on the other side of the field and you say, okay, well, there's your future NFL talent in Ruben Bain. You've got a starting cornerback in, I think it's Damari Brown. You've got Mark Fletcher, who's your starting running back, who's a dog. You have 2 5-star offensive tackles in that class. If you remind me from the 23. So I'm rambling here and I want to get your opinion on this too. Like when you compare the classes side by side, you see that this battle on Saturday was determined many, many years ago in terms of the quality of talent that Florida State has been able to bring in. There is a difference between bringing in talent in the transfer portal because you are masking years of recruiting deficiencies like Florida State has, and using the transfer portal and spending your deep pocket money, if you're Miami, on guys that are going to plug holes and elevate your roster. It's a nuanced difference, and I think that is what you saw on Saturday. That is what the article was about. And yeah, it's an elephant in the room, but Mario Cristobal, 2 top 10 classes and going into his 4th year, and Mike Norvell has 0 going into his 6th year. You recruit to survive. You recruit to survive, especially in this section of the country. And Florida State just hasn't been able to do that. So that's what that article was about. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and I think there's still more guys to come on that list. Like Armando Blunt was a 5-star that went Miami to Florida State to Miami, who I think he's getting some playing time, but he's not like a huge.
Bryce Fitzgerald.
That was a big one. That was one I noticed right away when he had the interception. Is that's one, and I think what's his best friend is a younger recruit who's still committed to FSU, right? Or was at one point, but it's
who would that be?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I really can't, but I remember him having. I remember because I was sitting in Charleston trying to cover both of them. But it's there's still a lot more to come. Bryce Fitzgerald was a big one. That's a good call out, and even Malachi Toney, I wouldn't say they were super in on. They were always mentioned, but that one was always Miami. Right. Like
it felt like Miami, Alabama, and Florida State. There was like a pocket of time for like maybe 2 weeks that he was thinking about visiting Florida State, if I remember correctly, and it just never materialized.
I wouldn't consider that one a huge miss or like a win, but you can even see in a lot. If you go down the 2025 list, there are some commits on the Miami 2025 list that Florida State really wasn't in on at all.
No,
right? I mean,
it felt like, especially in later classes, just Florida State started battling Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, like more up in this neck of the woods than it was more so the Floridas and the Miamis. But I don't know, man. Just I think we both can agree, and this is the last we'll say on it, then we'll get into what some of these kids said. But if Norvell doesn't last in Tallahassee, it's going to be because he didn't recruit well enough.
So what would you think of it? I would agree with that, but what would you think of the take that it seems like this last class, so the 2025 class, is been the best, right? They're the ones playing the most early, and it seems like they're the most talented. And how do you think the 26 class could translate to that as well? Because I don't think Florida State will – I think they can recruit at a top 10 level, but I don't really think a top 5 level, and that's like a NIL thing. And I think they like more of their guys than going after guys who are top ranked. So I think you're always going to see them in that 15-7 range, right? Would you agree with me on that? So do you think that it could change quickly with the 2025 to 2026 classes? Now, again, that wouldn't be something you see for another 2-3 years out.
And that was also something that I hit on the article is like, okay, if Florida State's recruiting is going to magically come to save him, it's like the scene in Star Wars where Luke, Han, and Leia are in the trash compactor and the walls are closing in, right? Are these kids going to be able to develop well enough and arrive on time in order to be able to save high school recruiting? Because there is so much on Florida State's roster that could be. When you take a look at Miami's roster, there is a lot more of here now, and that is a huge distinction. I think we need to be careful when talking about this 2025 class, because I think whenever you need to ask the question, are these 2025 kids playing because they are actually that damn good, or are they playing because there isn't that great talent ahead of them? And I think specifically on the defensive line, and I'm going to talk about the Desir twins here, I think there is a really interesting, nuanced combination of, well, there's just not that much good ahead of them, but also they are that damn good. I mean, they passed the eye test. Yep. So,
and Kevin Wynn, we haven't seen much of Kevin Wynn yet.
And we still need to see Juju, right?
Yep.
So I do think that this staff is better at evaluating than the last staff. I have higher confidence in the evaluations of Terrence Knighton, Evan Cooper, Tony White, Herb Hand, and especially her because he's been doing it for years and years
Yep.
and years and years. I have way more confidence in their evaluations than I ever would have done in an Alex Atkins evaluation if we're just going to compare apples to apples here, right?
Oh, 100%.
So
100%.
that is the interesting question. Is Florida State going to be able to continue to recruit well enough and have the NIL to recruit well enough to sit and hover around that top 10 range, ideally probably 7 to 10 if we're being realistic,
Yep.
and hit on their evaluations? Because that's really what has sunk you. Like I said at the far beginning of this rant, it's not so much that they're missing on top guys, because they are missing on top guys, but you're missing on your evaluations. There
Like
are too
Hakeem
many.
Williams. Hakeem Williams is a missed evaluation.
That's a missed
Right?
evaluation, and that's a missed evaluation even more so in the sense of, okay, Hakeem is coming from from Stranahan High School in Fort Lauderdale that hasn't been good at anything.
Yep.
And he's just a freak athlete, and it's on you to develop that freak athlete. And he was not developed at Florida State. Now, granted, he also just couldn't get out of his own way and was hurt quite frequently and probably didn't do the necessary steps in order to become that number one guy. But that is something that you're evaluating and you're judging and you're forecasting when you're recruiting them. And, it's a whole can of worms. It's a whole can of worms, Matt Lasser. But
it is.
Point being, Florida State needs to, if you want to go back to the bottom line, Florida State needs to recruit better. And
it does. And it's shown. It's shown. Like Ruben Bain was a guy they were in on too, right? Like there's a bunch of these ones that one little thing changes and they're on your side, and look at the difference in the score when it was only 6 points. So I agree with you. That's why I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to give you the avenue to really talk about it. And I was just looking at, and I said it, like, there was not many battles this year. Looking at this Miami commit list now, there's a few that I think they were in on. Like Brody Jennings is a miss from FSU. Then that's a pretty big miss in my opinion.
You obviously want to get a legacy kid in, but I'm not sure how crazy they were about him, to be brutally honest. Maybe not for the price point that they were asking.
Probably.
I don't know what the price point, by
that
the way.
Makes sense.
But like I never personally got the sense that Brody was somebody that they were prioritizing, especially with the trend with Florida State is that they have a bunch of defensive backs committed early because it's DBU, and then you kind of got to pick the pieces and really be picky on their board as you go into official visit season and all that.
So what about Wingo, wide receiver Wingo? I thought they wanted him.
They just no. They brought him in January, and it just would never materialize. That was a Miami, Florida thing. Yeah. I don't even think they offered him.
I thought they did.
I'm not sure that
they did. Yes, they did.
They did.
It was around like December 28th.
Okay.
I remember because I was at my friend's wedding.
Okay.
Jordan Campbell, that was one they tried to, but didn't really happen. Ashari Charles, same story. Jontavius Wayman, nothing ever materialized, but they tried it early. Javion Mallory, not really. Joel Irving, I thought never really clicked with FSU.
Yeah.
Cannon Pickett clicked with FSU, but was never not going to Miami.
I know you're going to get to him, but JJ Sparks, that is a head-to-head recruiting win for Miami.
Yep. And Rise Woodrow maybe too. He was supposed to officially visit.
He was, but I was not thrilled with what I saw when I saw Rise work out at a Rivals camp. So,
and these other kids, I don't know who it is. Jalen Waters, Seatbelt Waters, Florida Recruit of the Year.
I don't even know if I want to classify that as a Miami recruiting win. That's more just hey, you just hired this guy, so come on down. That's a Solomon Thomas, Alex Atkins type beat.
He was committed to Florida State for a cup of coffee.
Yep. not even a hot cup of coffee. That was like lukewarm. That's been sitting there for a while. DBU, yeah, psych. All right. Let's get into this actual visitors list, guys. Guys, it's just you and me, unless there's a third person here. I think it's because you said there's guys written on the recruiting doc here. Cam Wilson, guy that Florida State has been on for a while and really has been trying to build momentum with, obviously committed to Syracuse, and Syracuse is after two back-to-back blowout losses to what was it, Duke and SMU. Fran
They
Brown
beat
might need to
Clemson.
be running some. Yeah, they do, but I don't know. I feel like Fran Brown is running an extra couple of sprints after practices after some of these losses, but came into town. This was a visit that was planned for Wilson for a while. I was excited with what he saw, Matt, and should be back soon, correct?
Yeah, I look at the Virginia Tech game as an official visit target for Cam Wilson. Now, that's what he said he was looking at. Obviously, it could end up at any of these home games coming up, and it just pops up. But I think it's going to be trending towards that Virginia Tech game. The big thing, and he came back. He went to the game. He talked to Michael after the game, and then he came back for meetings Sunday morning, and I talked to him after meetings. And the biggest thing that was hammered down to him was, look at how many freshmen we played on the line, and look at you. You're going to have a chance to play early too. That is, and you'll hear that when we talk about other defensive linemen or edge rushers on this list as well. That was the biggest thing that was hammered down to these guys. I think it was the biggest thing that Knighton, Meach, all those guys were saying to them Sunday morning was, look at Desir, look at Wynn, look at the other Desir, look at all of these freshmen that we have playing. You can be that next year.
And Heze Kent did make it in. It was kind of a late addition to the visitors list. He was added a little bit after our show went live on Friday. Matt, do you think that they would take a third tight end after taking Corbin the same weekend? And he's surely at the top of the board at tight end if they do take that third tight end.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think they would still take him. I mean, they've done nothing. They haven't shown that they wouldn't take him, right? I think they would take a third, and depending on the guy, I think Heze Kent is one of those that they've liked all along and have tried to push for all along, right? He fits. He's a perfect biscuit replacement, being that bigger tight end. And I know you're going to say he ends up as an offensive tackle and you want him to be, but he is very adamant on being a tight end. And I think that, like, to the point where if they push him towards offensive tackle, he would transfer. That's my opinion on that. But I think the visit went well. Again, Heze Kent's not really doing media and stuff anymore, but I think the visit went well. We'll kind of see. This is one that is more long-term. Again, you won't see any intel from us regarding him if he's about to commit. It's going to be one of those surprise ones that'll just pop up probably on signing day that he's flipping to Florida State if it does happen. I do think Florida State took a step forward here. I mean, again, all these Florida commits that came had to choose you over the Texas-Florida game. Now, the Florida winning that game, we'll talk about this with a guy coming up. The Florida winning that game maybe hurt you a little bit with a loss over Miami. Maybe a little, but not, if you're already interested in Florida State, you're interested in Florida State. That's for I think it goes by each recruitment. But I think you took a step with Heze Kent, and I still think they would take him.
Well, let's just jump all the way there, Matt. Let's talk about Kaden Hall then. Obviously a guy that seems locked into Florida, but when things start going sideways in Gainesville, you start evaluating your options. Goes to the Florida State game. Was he on campus for the Miami game too? Did he go to both, or was that somebody else that I was saying? That might have been Justin Williams.
You were thinking of Justin Williams, who was supposed to do that, but with Florida winning, he stayed the entire game and didn't make it to Tallahassee.
Right. So Kaden Hall, is somebody that Florida State has liked for a long, long time. Obviously grew up a Florida State fan. Checking in on the Seminoles, probably a recruitment in which Florida winning on Saturday helps Florida to kind of calm that down. But that's very, very specific to Kaden Hall, who, as we've talked about on the show, genuinely likes Florida. Like, this is not a recruit where it's like, oh, I made my initial commitment to Florida and now they're not doing so well. Let me actually tread some other waters. This was more of a check-in just in case. I say all of that to say that my understanding is, like, Billy Napier is going to need one hell of a run to be able to save his job at the end of this year. That's kind of the conversation and the narrative that's going on right now. So just because Florida picks up a win on Saturday doesn't mean, just because you can't get the same way that you can't get too low about recruiting that Florida State lost to Miami on Saturday, you can't get too high if you're Florida about beating Texas on Saturday. There's still the possibility that Napier's out at the end of the year and there goes the staff and the dam's going to break open and then there's going to be a free cupboard of recruits for you to go and grab. That does not necessarily apply to Kaden Hall, who genuinely likes the Florida staff. He likes the University of Florida. Is there any wiggle room, Matt? Do you think for Florida State to continue to chisel away here, or is are things going to stalemate for now?
Yeah, I think this is one where you have to wait and see, and it's going to be the ebbs and flows. I think it was good for him to get on campus and kind of reconnect with the staff in person for the first time in a while, because he hasn't been here since the spring, and then he was supposed to see the last scrimmage of the spring, and then the whole tragedy on campus happened. So that's how long it's been since he's been on campus, and I think it was good for him to also talk to the commits of Florida State and kind of get the vibe of the class. That was something I heard he was looking at going into the visit as well, just basically reconnecting with everyone all together. Now, it sounded like he could take an official visit down the line this season. Then he told Corey Bender at UF or the Gators Online that he wasn't sure if he was taking an official visit. So I think this is one where we have to wait and see. And I do agree that it's like an more older school recruitment of let's see who's winning. And now, if Billy Napier gets fired, which right now I still think it's trending that way, how many times can you do this where you're about to get fired and save your job? Like, just it's kind of annoying. Like, if that's going to be your narrative every single year, you can't keep doing that to yourself. Like, you just can't keep doing it. One time you got to pull the Band-Aid off, right? But but I think in general, we're still going to watch Kaden Hall closely. I do think he could end up on campus later this season for an official visit, but there's no indications that that's imminent right now.
Aaron Thomas, another legacy commit that was on campus this past weekend, obviously committed to Ohio State, as Corbin Foreman was once committed to Ohio State. But whereas
he also took
Florida
the same official visit to Ohio State.
Well, hey, there you go. But whereas Florida State has been recruiting Corbin Foreman for years, Florida State was late to the recruitment of Aaron Thomas, only really offering him in the spring before getting him on an official visit in the summer. Chose Ohio State over Florida State, Texas A&M. Washington, I think, was one of the teams as well. The memory.
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah, I think you're right
not
on that.
serving me so well today. That's an early morning. That's a brain fog or early morning.
Sorry, that's my fault. That's my fault for having this record.
This guy said, I said, okay, well, why not shoot Friday morning? We'll be a little bit more up to date. We'll have the visitors list out. And Matt says to me, do you want to self-expose here?
I have a tea time. By the time this goes out, I will be done playing golf and on my way to College Town block party. So it's I got priorities, man. I got priorities.
You heard it here first. Matt does not care about the warpath. He doesn't care about the job.
It's fine. The visitors list is. I already have a good idea of the visitors list for this week. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
The two official visits matter, but Aaron Thomas. I think Florida State's not super trending well in this one. I also think he's going to keep it quiet as well. I've heard that Texas A&M is making a push there again, and he said Florida State's still recruiting him, but I don't think how much he's getting offered at other places Florida State will match. So I think that again, not that NIL is the only thing in this recruitment at all, but I just think it was always iffy here because you came in so late. If you can pull at the heartstrings, I think you could get him, but he's also treading lightly in his recruitment. He's trying to be very careful because he is comfortable with his Ohio State commitment. Once again, last week we said Florida State had gone ahead of Texas A&M. I think we need to relook at that. I think Texas A&M is still that second place in this recruitment until anything changes.
And the last guy that we want to talk about, there's a long list of guys, but we got to be picky and choosy here. Jamon Pinkney? Is it Pinkney? Are we saying Pinkney?
I don't. Yeah,
it's one of those.
Jamon, I forgot to ask him after the game, but he did get offered.
We'll go with Pinkney either way. We may be talking about him a little bit more on this show. Matt picks up a Florida State offer after visiting for the game on Saturday. He's a USF commit, committed during an official visit over the summer, or just after official visit rather. Is this the next great Florida State defensive line target to come through the woodwork, Matt? What's the story with Jamon?
Yeah, I think they like him. He has some really good senior film. He's had a really good season so far. And, if Florida State wants him, they can get him, right? He's committed to USF. He even said after he got offered on Saturday to us that this is a step up from any other offer I have. So if he's a take, it should be a pretty easy one, right? And I think this is one continue to watch. We'll see if other programs kind of jump in on him now, like maybe You see that a lot. One big program offers a kid, and then Miami's looking at his film a little bit and saying, "Oh, I like this kid too," and that domino effect. So we'll see if there's any other big time schools that get in on him. But right now, if he didn't say he was coming back from an official, but I would expect him to come back from an official. Why wouldn't you? So I think Florida State's trending well here.
Well, Florida State's still evaluating the defensive line. They did send out an offer to a massive defensive lineman a couple of days ago. Franklin Whitley was his name. 6'7", 265, something like that. Oh, good God. A massive defensive lineman. Looks like a 4-star on ESPN. I don't know what he's ranked in the On3 network, but that is a massive kid. That is a huge body along the defensive line. So that's going to be interesting. I think I've seen him pop up a lot recently in terms of a lot of other Power 4 programs getting after him. So, hey, Florida State is not done evaluating on the defensive line. They're throwing out offers, evaluating all their options. I think we've covered everybody that we wanted to cover. I'm sorry we couldn't talk about.
Yeah, hey, all the info. There's a few I still haven't posted on the boards, but most of the info's out there. I can give quick hitters. George Lamons, I still think they lead. Caden Henderson, I've never seen a kid look that comfortable around the facility on a recruiting visit. Sean Green liked it. Jaden Upshaw liked it, but is visiting Texas A&M this weekend. Rashad Street said top 5.
And Rashad Streets is somebody that visited in January as well. They've been on him pretty early.
Yep.
I think they were one of the first few offers for Streets. So he's a kid out of North Carolina to watch for next cycle. Okay, guys committed to FSU that we want to talk about real quick. I know there was a story up on Warchant about Jason Lopez. Not somebody that you get to talk to very often, so definitely go and read what Jason had to say after we talk about it today. And then Ernest Rankin's defensive line commitment. Matt, what do we need to know about what Jason and Ernest said after their visit to Florida State on Saturday?
These are two that, Jason Lopez is a very busy kid. He's on the basketball camp circuit and tournament circuit and then football as well. So he needs to focus on that stuff. But it's a good talk to him. This is when we always said, like, Miami's still there, and you hear the Miami site saying, like, he could flip. But now, at this point, he hasn't visited anywhere else. Like, let's be honest. If it was true that these were other schools were going to gain momentum, he would have gone there already. And when I was talking to him, I said, "You haven't visited anywhere?" And he goes, "No." And then he said he still talks to schools every once in a while, the usual suspects, NC State, West Virginia, and Miami. And I came out of this a lot less worried about this recruitment than I did in general, because he just is like, I'm not really just the vibe of like he's pretty comfortable at FSU.
Okay. Well, that's encouraging, because I think that's probably one of the guys that you didn't know a whole lot about the recruitment, not in terms of like intel or anything, but he only had visited Florida State for that official visit. He wasn't able to get up in the spring. So it feels like there was a lot more to play out, I guess I want to say. It felt like there was a lot more to play out with that recruitment, but it looks like right now that he's solid to Florida State, I wouldn't really get worried until he takes a visit to another program.
That's the only thing.
That's where you need to look.
I agree. If he visits, that's when you sound the alarm a little bit. But as long as it stays the way it is, I'm not really worried.
And then Ernest Rankins.
Yeah, Ernest, same kind of thing. He got kind of a quiet kid, but really good to see him back on campus. I don't think he's visited since his official visit either, but also hasn't visited anywhere else. Same thing. I asked him who he talks to. He didn't give names of schools, but he said, schools still hit him up, but he said he's not really looking anywhere else. Like, he's just not looking. Like, they hit him up and that's about it. And he, again, like we said before, the pitches these young defensive linemen are playing, that was something that was really hammered down to him by the defensive line staff, by Terrence Knighton, by Meach. That was hammered down to him on those Sunday morning meetings. And then Norvell brought the energy like he always does in his meeting, like pretty textbook stuff for recruitment. But the main thing is here, he said he's not looking anywhere else. So that's very good to hear from your top defensive line commit.
Before we go anywhere or say anything else, we do want to give a special thank you to one of the sponsors for the Warpath, Andy Ludicky with MyPerfectFranchise.net. Are you sick of your job? Are you ready to leave the corporate rat race? Do you want to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy? Whatever it is that you want to do. Do you have a job and want to side hustle, bring in a little bit of extra income, Andy can help. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, passions, and financial requirements. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership. He is a rabid college football fan, so you can talk about franchising, you can talk about football, you can have a fantastic conversation with Andy. Head to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more, or you can call or text Andy at 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901. Matt Lasser, I have a note here on the War Pants. I have a note here on the Warpath Google Doc that says new offensive tackle to watch. Interesting stuff. Who do we got to be on the watch out for here?
Yeah, Gabriel Osienda from up at the Baylor School. Sam Spiegelman put on our boards that, the Florida State's school to watch here, and you could see an official visit come soon. I've heard from some people around the recruitment that if Florida State were to push, that's a school that really holds weight for them. Nothing really major right now, but again, quick note, just something to watch and to see if, again, we're still looking to see who that offensive tackle is they're going to push for. I said before, it feels like it's not going to be Aaron Thomas. Mubenga hasn't shown up on campus yet. Maybe that's a surprise visitor soon, but maybe this is the one that's coming. We were still waiting to see. It doesn't feel like it's going to be Johnny Jones, but this is another name to watch and keep an eye on.
Well, Osenda committed to Tennessee and has been committed to Tennessee since January. 4-star, Wow, there is a big diversity here in terms of what the recruiting services think about him. 3-star with Rivals, 5-star with 247, and then 3-star again with ESPN. I tend to agree with the Rivals ranking. In all honesty, I saw Gabriel at the Rivals camp in Atlanta, and I didn't think he had the best day. And I talked to some other people that had seen him more frequently, and they said, yeah, that's kind of a common trend. He does have some pretty up and down days. So, look, I know that's not much to chew on. We'll have to talk to him a little bit if he ever makes it to campus, if Florida State pushes and becomes serious here. But maybe this is a sign of, I don't want to say desperation, but you're really at this point trying to evaluate all your options. Ascenda is somebody that definitely is going to need to be molded, I think, when he gets to a college campus, even though there are some recruiting services that think that he's an outstanding prospect. So
but just a quick note, we'll see how things play out.
Yeah. Now on to this upcoming weekend before we end the show here. A couple of official visitors coming in this weekend for the Pitt game. You have Jacob Curry, who we've talked about multiple weeks on the show now. Recent linebacker offer. Florida State battling schools like Oklahoma. Ohio State does have a RPM pick in for him for Oklahoma, and that came shortly after he visited.
Well, they had another one this week too from the Sooners group guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Well, regardless, Curry is going to be in Tallahassee this weekend. What are the odds that? You seem to think in general that Florida State does have a shot here to make a move. What are the odds you think that there is significant momentum that comes out of this visit this weekend?
I mean, this is your chance to stay home, right? Like, that's what this comes down to, in my opinion. And also, I think Florida State is a dream offer for him, right? It's a Florida kid, and this is the one in-state school really pursuing you. That holds some weight, I would think, for anybody who's from the state. And I do know there's a lot of Florida State ties around the recruitment, not his parents, but more of his coaches from Nice. I think that I could see this flipping Florida State's way pretty quickly if they push, in my opinion. RPMs are RPMs, but if you're still taking visits, nothing's set in stone and nothing's actually happened yet. So I'm very interested to see how much Florida State pushes on this visit, but I do think with things quieting down on Forkpa that he has become a pretty high priority target for them. And but clearly they want a position of need, and they want those two blue chip linebackers for the first time since 2019.
Chris Corbin, somebody that was supposed to officially visit this past weekend against Miami. That visit was pushed back as Florida State wanted to focus on the uncommitted prospects that were there the past weekend. So Chris Corbin coming in. Obviously, we've talked about Chris Corbin, feels like every week for the past 4 weeks. The offer holds weight. He's officially
He did
visited.
it,
He's visited multiple
and
times.
he did officially decommit from Georgia Tech.
That is important to note too. That's a good
So
call, Matt.
yeah, and there was a few I got to look up, but I think Michigan was also in there. There was also another school.
He got offered by Auburn recently too.
So that too there, but do you think Florida State could close this out this weekend? Like if there's a kid on commit watch, I would say it's him easily.
I would say it's him. I mean, that's what I was going to ask you. What's more likely, that Chris Corbin commits this weekend, or they make a significant move for Jacob Curry?
I feel like they're both likely. Like I feel like they both have a good shot to happen. I haven't talked to Curry as much, but I've talked to Corbin Wednesday night briefly, because just to kind of get some insight before going on the show of what he's looking for in the visit. And he said, well, not the atmosphere, because I saw that against Alabama. Like it's probably not going to get better than that, right? So then maybe it did last week against Miami before they went down. But it's but in general, that's he's seen that. He knows Doak Campbell Stadium can get rocket. He's just kind of going to go with the way I phrased the question to him was like, do you have anything specific you want the staff to show you that like you're excited for, or are you just kind of going with the flow and see what they show you and you're just excited to be on the visit? And he said, just go with the flow. Like, I'm excited to take the pictures, learn more about the academics, see the campus. Like he wants more of a day in the life on this official visit. And obviously, it's pretty clear that the kid likes Florida State. He's decommitted. He's been the place that he's visited the most since getting offered and since, the summer. Yeah, I feel like this could go Florida State. We've said all along that, we think this could go Florida State's way pretty easily.
Yeah, a couple of key unofficial visits coming in this weekend, one of them being a new running back target that we haven't talked about officially on the show yet, but I know that it's been on the Warchant boards. It's been on our boards as well at theosceola.com. Quantavious Wiggins, FIU running back commitment that's having a really good senior year, backs up Carson Baker at Langston Hughes, which it's funny that he's teammates with Carson Baker because, going into the visit, like, okay, Carson Baker's going to be there on campus. This is it. That changed quickly. Amari Thomas came in. Didn't feel like it did anything significant there. It felt like Amari Thomas is really kind of he's just coming to games and maybe negotiating.
For the show, as you say.
For the show, as I say. Exactly. So here you have Quantavious Wiggins, who could be emerging as a new running back target for Florida State, especially after Cooper. That seemed to have subsided pretty quickly. Baker, we'll have to see. I think there's a lot of flip-floppy that's going on there, so we'll have to see if that picks back up at another point. But Quantavious is somebody that's getting a lot of looks and is certainly an attainable target, being only committed to FIU at this point. Adrian Cole, Matt, I'll defer to you on this one. I haven't learned too much about Cole up until this point.
Yeah, so he announced he was going to be visiting FSU this weekend last night. I talked to him pretty briefly. He's excited really just to see the atmosphere. Now, he has a lot of big-time offers, obviously a top 100 safety according to Rivals. And I asked him, and he's been to Florida State before because he said just want to get a feel for the atmosphere again. And, Florida State does have some catching up to do because I kind of just straight up asked him, I was like, are they in that top tier or do they still have some work to do? And he said they still have some work to do. So maybe they can catch up here on this visit.
Yeah, Douglas County, Georgia feels like a very heavy presence there early.
Maybe Devin Carter's helping them out a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. You can only hope. You can only hope and do so much. And then, excuse me. And then Dalen Green still hasn't officially decommitted from Arkansas, but it does feel like things are in motion here for Florida State. I'm not sure how much you can say, but it feels like a visit to Florida State is coming, if not once, but multiple times in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I do. As of now, I do expect him to visit for the Pitt game. I think this is one that we've said all along there. Florida State wants him, they will get him. And I don't think there's any debate in that. And obviously the Arkansas firing only helped that. But I still thought in general that, and maybe that made them pay more attention to him in general. They're like, oh, wait, like you forgot about this kid, whatever. But we've always said that if Florida State were to push here, the kid grew up a Seminole fan. Like we use the word dream school, the term dream school a lot, but this is one where like it legitimately would be a dream come true for him. And I would be happy for the kid to be able to go to Florida State. Like that's what this recruitment is. That's like just how it has been. So we're going to see how this goes. But again, if Florida State pushes, they can get them.
I'm going to make an amendment to the question that I asked earlier. I know that Dalen Green is not an official visitor. If he comes this weekend, it's going to be unofficially, I imagine, and then maybe an official visit later.
I believe so.
But I was going to say, in terms of likelihoods between Jacob Curry, Chris Corbin, and then maybe Dalen Green, if he shows up on campus, I feel like Dalen Green may be the more sure bet of all for a commitment to Florida State if that happens.
That's true.
So with that being said, that will conclude this episode of The Warpath. Thank you all for listening and watching, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on any podcast platform, Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever Simplecast extends out to. Not sure. But thank you all for your viewership. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back next week to discuss maybe potential commitments, maybe not. If not, definitely the outcome of some of the visitors that came in during the Pittsburgh game. Hopefully Mike Norvell and company can get it back on track against Pitt. What is that?
Oh, this is my dad went to Pitt, so it's a big game for the family. Winner gets to keep the ball, so hopefully I still have this ball in my possession come next show.
Okay,
I think
there's a lot on the line. There's a lot on the line this weekend. Not only potential questions about a hot seat getting really, really warm, but the Lasser family
hot
football.
seat. Who cares about the hot seat? This is more important than the hot seat.
Lasser family football. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching The Warpath. Nick Carlisle, Matt Lasser. See you next week.